Hey guys! I genuinely didn't think I'd be talking about this again since I know I did a video on it not long ago. But apparently people still need reminded that references are not cheating. Before we get into that though, let's talk about the art. I reused the footage from my Pokemon, my Pokemon print for Willow because I really like it. I think it's a very good design. I'm still working on the others, but I'm also here soon working on, starting to do weekly streams before too long. I'll be doing them on here and on Twitch. I would appreciate it if you guys would turn in once I start. They're going to start next Friday, and I will be working on some of my other stuff, as well as some stuff for my other kind of project ideas, including one that I've had in the works for a very, very long time. So I really hope you guys will tune into that and see what's going on. But for the art, I still really love this picture. I love this piece. I did a whole video about this piece, so I'm not going to go on about it too long. But just let me know if there's any other particular art that you guys want to see, especially, putting Trace characters in other things than just Pokemon. Although I'm looking forward very much to completing the rest of them and having those up, because I am going to start an online shop soon, and prints will be part of that, and I think these are really cute, so there we go, and on with the topic. So I found out from watching other people's videos that apparently on TikTok, because of course it's on TikTok, because where else would it be, we're going to end up going through the whole references are cheating. Oh no, you're not a real artist. You used a reference. How dare you? And I don't understand it. Like I said, I made a video about this not long ago, and here it goes rearing its ugly head again. So, why? Why? I thought we were done with this. This has been an ongoing discourse thing that people have been talking about literally since I was a child, and DeviantArt first became a daggone thing. Okay, yes, I was a child before DeviantArt was a thing. Shout out to anybody else who might actually remember Quizilla, especially in its original iteration. Because I certainly do, and I certainly used it. And when I say original iteration, I mean it was one way, and then Nickelodeon bought it, I think, and then it became a different way, and now it doesn't exist at all. So, shout out to anybody else my age who remembers the original Quizilla with the sparkly, was it blingies, I guess? With the sparkly stickers at the end of a quiz, and people writing full-blown fanfics on there just as often as fanfic.net. But anyway, this discourse really has been going on since I was a child, and it's still absurd. It has gotten no less absurd, and the last video was structured. This one is just going to be me ranting, so here we go. I don't know what it is that makes people go through this thing of, oh, you're using a reference. You're not a real artist. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It absolutely just baffles me. It has always absolutely baffled me, confuddled me. It has left me just flabbergasted. I'm having vocabulary fun today. Don't mind me. I think I've forgotten to take my meds today. Oops. That explains a lot. But references are something that professional artists use. I don't understand why people don't seem to grasp this. If you're working in a professional setting, you're going to use references because you have to get things right. A great example is animation. Professional animators, even back in the day, Bambi is a great example. Do you know what they did? They brought actual deer into the studio for people to use as references. Professional animators who created a major motion picture, they used references in order to create the right movements and the right ways to move. They weren't expected to draw it all from their imagination and from their heads. Like, I'm sorry, that's unrealistic to expect of anybody. But acting like references are just cheating in general is ridiculous and absurd. How do you think you build your skills in the first place? You reference things and you learn to draw them. That's how you learn anatomy. That's how you learn to draw facial features. That's how you learn not to end up in, depending, unless that's what you're going for, that's how you end up with one eye not down on the cheek and the other one up on the forehead, unless you're intentionally pulling a Picasso. Okay? References are a useful thing. They are a tool. They aren't cheating. And I get that some people trace references. You know what? People do that. Professional artists do this too. They trace them. The important thing is that usually they trace it just to get the body proportions, or to nail down the anatomy, or even to break down the structure of the anatomy of something to figure it out. Just about everybody has done this, and everybody who's calling other artists cheaters has probably done this at one point too, so they're just kind of being a little bit hypocritical, if you want my opinion. But it is absurd to me. Yes, learning to draw from imagination is important, but the problem is, and the problem that a lot of these people clearly don't realize, is that it's a requirement to build up your visual library first. Because without your visual library, your brain has nothing to pull from in order to draw from imagination. You are influenced no matter what. You are subconsciously referencing things you have seen in your real life. You are subconsciously referencing other things that you have seen online, other images, other ways people draw. And no matter what, you can't really get rid of the fact that you are subconsciously referencing, no matter how much you want to say references are cheating, because they're not. Now, if you're heavily referencing something and somebody can easily tell that you took something from somebody else, that's a problem. That's an issue. Give credit. If you give credit, or if they ask you to take it down and you do, problem gone. Problem solved. Why we make a problem when there's no problem? Okay? It's just, that's just how it is. If you're heavily referencing something and you give credit, and the other person doesn't mind that you reference their stuff, that's fine. Now, that said, the give credit crowd can go too far on that too, and want you to credit every single thing that may have possibly influenced your artwork, in particular, in general. That's literally impossible. If you're not heavily referencing to the point where they can pick out exactly where you reference that from, then you should give credit. If not, you don't really have to. I'm sorry, if it's transformative enough that people can't tell where it came from, you don't need to give credit, because you've pulled enough stuff from your own brain and from your own process that it's not the same thing anymore. That is the point of referencing. You use references to build other skills and to create other things. If you're directly copying or using somebody's work as a study, definitely either give credit or don't post it. Those are your options. If you're heavily referencing something and somebody can tell, give credit or don't post it. Those are your only two options, other than if you post it anyway and don't give credit, either give credit when asked to give credit, or take it down. Those are your options there. If you don't, yeah, you're a jerk then, and yeah, now there's a problem. Another thing is, keep in mind, because people need to keep in mind, because I've seen so many instances of, you reference such and such, you're cheating, you shouldn't be doing this, when sometimes things are coincidental. Coincidences exist. It really does. It very much so exists. And that's just how it is. It's like a weird serendipitous thing. Sometimes coincidences that make things very similar exist. Like, there's a scene in The Lion King that is very similar to a movie that came out in a different country very shortly after, like, close enough together that there is no way that it was copied. It would be, like, physically impossible for it to be created at the quality it was that quickly. And if you don't know the movie I'm talking about, it's Felidae. If you are not an adult and want to avoid mature themes, please don't look it up. But there is a scene towards the end of the movie that is very reminiscent of the whole thing at the end of The Lion King, where Scar lunges at Simba in the original animated movie. They came out the same year, like within a couple of months of each other. There is no way that it could have been copied, but it was extremely similar down to everything being engulfed in flames around them. But it was still a coincidence. It was a pure coincidence. And coincidences exist, and people tend to forget that as well and accuse somebody of tracing or referencing, even when they haven't. So keep that in mind too, in regard to references. Just because you think something looks similar, it might be complete coincidence. They may not have been referencing directly something. That may have been something that stuck in their visual library and they didn't realize they were pulling from it. These things exist, and people need to be aware of that. That is also not cheating. That is just how building your visual library works. That's why you can see inspiration from things so easily, even if it's not explicitly referenced in that image or even intentionally done. A great example is the way that a lot of modern cartoons, you can tell that the creators in a lot of the modern cartoons, a lot of them were very clearly and very obviously influenced by anime as they grew up. And especially in a lot of them now, you get a lot of, girls love kind of thing that has clearly been influenced by a lot of magical girl anime, that some of it was direct reference. Yes, some of it was directly pulled and inspired. A lot of it is very implied reference that was probably coincidental and pulled from the creator's visual library because they were just inspired by those things. Those were things that stuck with them. It's very common, and the fact that people forget about that is ridiculous. Because references are not cheating. Referencing is how you learn. That is how learning to draw and learning to create works. Even if you're a writer, you're going to end up, even subconsciously, referencing different writing styles, practicing different writing styles, pulling from what you yourself has read, and that makes you a more accomplished writer, and it furthers your skills. The same thing goes for pottery. You see a piece that you like, you learn how it's made, you incorporate those techniques. Just because something is referenced does not automatically make it bad. And I just feel like people need to recognize this more because, again, I know this discourse is going to pop up again. I didn't expect it to pop up this time so soon after I made my last video on referencing and why it's not cheating. But here we are again, and I don't know. I feel like it needs pointed out. And the fact that I ended up, it incensed me so much that I felt the need to make a video on it. It really did. There was something about it that just lit a fire in me. Because I sit, and whenever I go to draw something, more often than not, I will search for references. Especially, like, if it's something that I'm a little unsure about. Like with the Pokemon illustrations. I have been looking at references in the form of different Pokemon-style artworks. I've been looking at references for the Pokemon themselves, for the trainer prints that are put out by, like, the Pokemon Center. And those are helpful. They help me figure out what's a good way to pose them, how do they have the movement from these? Because I want to figure that out, because they're intended to be in a similar style, but still my style, just in a similar vein. And I heard a bird. Anyway, it's one of those things where these things have to be taken into account. I'm not great at drawing armor. I'm still learning. Therefore, when I'm drawing a character with armor, I have to pull up a bunch of references of armor. And depending on whether I'm doing, like, fantasy or sci-fi, I have to pull up references of the specific one, because there are different hallmarks and design conventions for both. It's a very common thing. Sometimes you need to reference things, especially if you don't know things. It doesn't mean it's cheating, it means you're learning. And I felt the need to voice my opinion on this with it popping up again. I appreciate you guys sitting through my rant and ramble, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, Inside Chaos, Salmon, and Creativa Artly. And I hope I will see everyone whenever I start streaming. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you need it, use references!